The brand new Brutalis Dreadnought is nearly upon us, ready to tear apart anything and everything that stands in its way, and by the looks of it, it is going to be exceptionally good at it. Unlike its ranged brother the Redemptor, the Brutalis swaps the gun arm for yet another fist to bring even more pain in close combat, and with presumably the same stat line as the Redemptor fist at strength times 2, minus 3 AP and D3 plus 3 damage, it can certainly pack a punch. I would expect the chassis, like the base chassis, to gain an extra attack over the Redemptor, seeing as it is a melee unit, so it can put out quite a lot of damage. This Dreadnought is going to be a relatively scary prospect to see across the table, I think. Unlike its brother the Redemptor with its underslung heavy flamer or Gatling cannon option, the Brutalis has a slightly simpler option in that it takes a twin bolt rifle on each fist, so I think it's arguably not quite as exciting as the heavy flamer or the Gatling cannon, but it still does get you a decent amount of extra firepower, up to 8 extra shots to fire into your opponent as you are moving into melee range. The big change, however, is that instead of the fist, you can opt to take the Brutalis Talon instead. This has definitely got, for me anyway, a bit of a Furioso Dreadnought vibe, so if you are a Blood Angel player, you may really like this. This Talon gives you a similar strength times 2, minus 4 AP, D3 plus 3 damage profile, so there is an extra pip of AP straight off the bat. But the big thing is, this lets you reroll your wound rolls. And this is going to be huge for making sure that even the toughest enemies really do feel the pain, as well as help mitigate that feels bad when you charge into a squad of guardsmen and roll a load of 1s. And on the topic of charging into a load of guardsmen, if you do find yourself bogged down by enemy infantry, it's not just that big strike attack that you can do, you can also do a very useful sweep profile attack as well. And the sweep profile is strength user, so presumably strength 7 like the Redemptor, minus 3 AP and 1 damage, but you make 2 attack rolls for every attack, so you essentially get double the attacks. So even if it does end up keeping the same 4 base attacks as the Redemptor, that means that on the charge, you are still going to be able to pump out 10 attacks into enemy squads, and at strength 7 with minus 3 AP, this is still going to very easily allow you to wipe out entire squads of guardsmen and gaunts and orc boys that may be trying to block your path. So yes, it does have some incredibly good, varied melee options that are going to make it an absolute nightmare for both squads and enemy vehicles or elite infantry. Even things like knights are going to be quite scared of getting charged by one of these things just from the sheer amount of damage that they can pump out. But on top of that, it also has some slightly different ranged weapon options available to it as well. The Icarus missile pod of the Redemptor has now been replaced by a twin Icarus Irontail heavy stubber, which nets you a further 8 strength 4 shots. And then in place of the Redemptor's Stormbolters or Fragstorm launchers, the Brutalis can take much spicier options in the form of 2 heavy bolters, or if you really want to be the bane of enemy vehicles, 2 multi-melters. So I think what I like about this kit is you can really load him out to be quite terrifying anti-horde, or obviously very terrifying anti-armor. He can melt tanks and mulch terminators with his melee, but also if you go for the option of the fists with the bolt rifles, as well as the Iron Hell heavy stubber and the heavy bolters, that nets you 16 strength 4 shots and 6 strength 5 shots, which really will allow you to chew through enemy screening units very easily and then charge the tanks or elite infantry that they may have been trying to protect and just melt them with your fists. So I do think that overall this is going to be quite a fun unit to bring on the battlefield. He definitely fits the melee vibe that I think a lot of Primaris units are still lacking, even though they've mitigated that a little bit with things like the Blade Guard veterans. There are still a few gaps in the Primaris range where a decent heavy hitting melee unit could certainly find a place, and I think the Brutalis is going to fill that quite well. I don't know if he's going to be as competitive as the Redemptor, because obviously melee units do always run the risk of struggling to make it into combat, whereas if you take the Redemptor, you can just sit back and shoot all game if you really want to. So we will see how he ends up falling in terms of his points and how viable he is actually going to be. but I do think that certain armies like the Blood Angels, the Space Wolves, or the White Scars are really going to like this guy just for the enormous amount of hitting power that he can put out, as well as their abilities to get him into combat just that little bit earlier than other chapters to really make the most of his melee power. So there we go, that is the Brutalis Dreadnought. I do think he looks rather brutal. But what do you think of him? Is he all that you wanted from a new Primaris melee unit, or were you hoping for something else? Let me know down in the comments below, and as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe for more Warhammer content from me, but until next time, I'll catch you later, guys.